Whether you're new to pool and practicing the basics, or a more experienced player performing drills to improve your shot making and positional play, the Drill Partner is perfect for you.
Welcome back, Mike. How are you?
Rested, exhausted.
Hung. Easy. I don't know what happened there.
You didn't like my intro or what?
No, I didn't like. I wasn't a fan of the answer you gave me, buddy. So I decided to say I got this other computer over here, and it's not playing nice today. It's on vacation as
probably
well.
going by facial recognition, and they didn't recognize you.
Well, because you know what? I get like on tilt where I'm just like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna shave, and then this is like when my daughters see me, like they're the ones where they're
freak out.
They just give me the most like, oh, Dad, why are you doing that for? Because they're unfiltered, you know what I mean, and they just don't care that, and they like giving me a hard time as well. So
you see those little videos online every now and then of like little kids who've seen their fathers without their beard for the first time and since they were born, and they just freak
like
out.
Looking around. Yeah. But that's what it is. And they're all like, Madeline's gonna be 6. My oldest is 14, 15 now. She just turned 15. So it's like, they've seen the ebbs and flows of me in my life by this point. But even so, and I tell you on that note though, I can't wait for school to start back up, Mike. I know some,
but it's not even July, man.
I am ready for these girls to go back to school. They are driving me nuts. Right. I've had all 4 girls here for the better part of like since they got out of school, really. And usually I'll have like 3, 2, whatever, you know what I mean. But to have all 4 at the same time, it's a handful, and they all got their own little personality traits, to say the least.
Yeah.
So, but how are you doing, man? I know you just came back from vacation.
Yeah. Family trip. 22 Pinozos invading the west coast of Mexico.
What was the alcohol bill like, Mike?
My mother dialed it up. It was an adult inclusive resort.
They didn't know who they were messing with, Mike.
But the cool thing is, even in the rooms, because it's all inclusive, in the rooms on my wall above the counter that's got the refrigerator under it, the glassware and stuff like that, was a case that had a bottle of tequila, a bottle of rum, a bottle of gin, and a bottle of whiskey, all upside down with the little attachments on it where you just put your glass up to it and it gives you a shot. And it's just in the room. You just kind of like have at it.
Don't mind if I do, right?
Yeah. It was like, man, on my way to the shower in the morning, it was like, okay.
just top it off for me, dear.
Yeah. No, it was a lot of fun.
That's good, man. That's good. I'm like 2 weeks away, actually, like probably like a week and a half now from going on a trip myself with the girls. It's been like our yearly thing, and then we skipped last year because I had junior nationals and it conflicted with the dates, but they did not let me forget. And so I think the weekend of the 22nd will be, or that week of the 22nd, I'll be gone. So if I make it between now and then, it's this place called Marble Falls. It's like outside of Austin, kind of.
Okay.
And so it's a lot of like just outdoor stuff and water, and right on a lake as well, pools and the whole 9 yards. So
nice.
It'll be good. The outdoors will wear them out, and then I've been come back home and we'll cook some dinner and stuff. And it's a nice place we go stay at as well. So I'm looking forward to it. But in the meantime, Mike, before I get too carried away on vacation, there's been a lot of stuff while you've been gone in the pool world, Mike. And I was like, what the hell is going on? Where Mike decided to take a day off.
Well, see, this is all planned. I mean, they know when I'm out of town, it's time to drop news.
Didn't the other one drop, Mike, with the WPA agreement while you were out of town as well?
Yeah, probably.
I think it did. I'm going to turn off the chat here for a little bit, but we see you guys in here, and we're going to get to Fedor and Shane here momentarily. Mike, let me see if I can turn off this.
Indonesia. What's going
on? Indonesia, Mike, while you've been gone. couple of world championships, Mike, and the dates are pretty interesting. We've got the WPA 10 ball men's double world championship, which I want to talk to you about here in a minute.
Yeah,
That's a new one. The WPA World 8 Ball Men's Championship and the WPA World 10 Ball Women's Championship out there in Indonesia. But if you look a little closer, Mike, number one, it's in Bali, which I hear is like heaven on earth. I don't know, 'cause I've never been, but I want to go. And number two isn't there something else going on the 7th through the 13th, Mike?
Yeah. No, you got a lot of
Isn't there a little?
Yeah, what is Hanoi is 7th? Yeah, the World 9-Ball Tour Hanoi Open, 7th to the 12th.
Yeah.
So
it might be some issues there, Mike.
Might be an issue. And then you got Reyes Cup right on the back end of this.
Which we talked about that like privately, Mike, which I think we both agreed that it was kind of like a weird timing especially with the Philippine Open, because it's like you have Hanoi, but then you have Reyes, which is in the middle, and then you're going to go and have an open event after Reyes, but then it's like, where's everybody else going to go that's not competing in Reyes, because they're not going to want to go back to the U.S. for a week, right, in between Hanoi and the Philippine Open. But what is your first thoughts and takes on this one, Mike?
Well, I mean, it's conspiracy theory heaven.
Oh yes,
something like this happen. It's just like it's almost like too much fun. It's like, where do I start?
Yeah.
So, but there's a couple ways to look at this, and there's a couple ways people have to look at this. One, there's no coincidence that this is on top of the Hanoi dates.
No.
Okay? And so, but yeah, I mean, Hanoi's been the same time for 2 years in a row.
Okay.
And so Indonesia,
didn't they just announce Hanoi though, Mike?
They did. But here's where I'm going to, tell everybody they got to pump the brakes a little bit on this part of it. Okay. So if you looked at the WPA calendar early in the year, there were a bunch of blocks sectioned off during the year that were to be determined predator events on the WPA calendar. So that during, in these little holes, we're going to fall in, the World 10 ball, World 8 ball, whatever else they do.
Yeah.
So, you knew that those were going to happen. But the fact that
we just didn't know where.
The fact that those dates were on top of the Hanoi dates, no mistake there. The other side of that, though, is that while the Hanoi Open is known to happen during this time, when Predator's working on their schedule and WPA is working on its calendar, okay, there was no agreement with WPA and Matchroom at that time.
Right.
There wasn't an agreement with WPA and Matchroom till May. And we all know that could have gone south anytime. So do you, if the WPA and Matchroom don't come to an agreement, Hanoi was pretty much going to be queered anyways, right?
30 years in a row.
Whether there was an event on top of it or not, it was going to be a you can't go event if you were a WPA player, if the WPA and Matchroom hadn't come to an agreement. Okay, so
right, because then you would just be banned, right? That would just be
correct.
Yeah, okay.
So from that standpoint, it's kind of how much were you going to bend over for an event that might not have even been sanctionable, playable, anyways. Okay, and that's just for the players. Forget about whether or not Matchroom was going to have an even harder time than before having something in Hanoi if the WPA and Matchroom talks had fallen apart and WPA members were all up in arms again. Okay, especially the Asian Federation, right? So, there were a lot of opportunities, or there was a high likelihood that if the WPA and Matchroom had not come to an agreement, that part of the year was going to be a mess anyways.
Anyway.
But
help me understand here though, Mike. So at the beginning of the year, or I'm assuming prior to the year, these promoters will go to the WPA and they'll say, hey, in order to for basically protect a certain set of dates, right? Like a week or whatever.
Right.
But at that point, there's nothing set in stone. It's not ironed out. They just have, they're in talks or whatever. So I'm just forecasting here. And I want to give you a heads up that this block of dates may be for something we got going on. And we'll let you know as soon as we get it ironed out.
Yeah. Same thing that Matchroom does. I mean, Matchroom says all the time, well, everybody knows we have the Hanoi Open. But you just announced it 2 weeks ago. Okay. Right. So for the first 6 months of the years, it was but no guarantee of anything. So it's just it's one of those things that's probably going to get worse for a while before it gets better in terms of now, Predator's probably got WPA calendar filled up through 2027, and Matchroom will try to do the same thing, and it'll all be, the game of who actually stepped on whose dates, right? But again, I will say that to me there's no coincidence that the dates for Indonesia are the dates for Indonesia. So how that affects.
It's a pretty hot take though, Mike,
There's a lot of things going on here. One, Predator, it was very interesting to me that they did a men's double championship, not a mixed double.
Where else have we seen a doubles men's event, Mike, that we've been hoping to see for the last 2 years now?
So World Cup of Pool still hasn't been announced. So
will it, Mike? Do you? And I know you talked to Emily when you had her on Billiards BD Live.
She pulled a Fred Astaire on us. So
what was it? What was it that she said? Because I think I remember hearing you ask her the question about
the long and short of it was, all I asked was, will there or won't there be a World Cup of Pool this year? And we didn't get an answer. So who knows? I don't know. I'm kind of expecting that there will be, although I don't know how long you can wait.
At this point, Mike, it's June though.
Mike, we've been through this a million times.
I'm just playing like, devil's advocate here because
I guarantee Matchroom has had a schedule planned out for a long time for the whole year. And I'm pretty sure.
But if they're not sharing that with
I'm pretty sure that schedule was given to the WPA during their negotiations. Right?
But then you're saying WPA would have known that Predator had something cooking for that date in October.
So I have it on fairly good authority that when Predator did say, okay, these events that were on your thing, this is going to be the World 8-Ball Men's Championship in Indonesia, the WPA talked to both sides about moving the date. I'm pretty sure they talked to Matchroom about, can you move your dates? And I'm sure Matchroom said, no, this is TV contracts, things like that. This is not, which Predator does not have. Okay, so when I lean towards, okay, who's got a tougher time moving a date? Once it's announced,
I would say Matchroom would have a tougher time moving.
For that very reason. So
right.
So you've got that issue. You got the whole thing with it being a doubles championship sweetens the pot for men who want to play in it, because now you got two opportunities, right? Two chances to make money. Be interesting to see, a couple things that are missing here, which is to me really interesting. One, there's no mention of prize money in this, in the whole release on the World Championship.
Because there's a lot to dissect here, because I want to get to the prize money here in a minute, because I posted what last year's was, and I expect for it to at least be similar, right, to last year. I mean, you would probably think it'd be more, but just for the sake of the argument.
It's more, don't you announce it? Don't you really wet people's whistle? Don't you really dazzle them with your announcement?
Well, let me ask you this, Mike. Do we have a prize fund breakdown of the World 9-Ball Championship by this point?
Same prize fund as last year. Why would it be any different? I mean, if it, they announced the prize fund,
not the prize breakdown.
But here we don't even have the prize fund. Don't even know. And Predator, with all its previous events, has always been a total of $500,000 between these 3 events, or a total of whatever. They always found a way to do that. With this, nothing. Right.
So, are you thinking it's going to be less then?
No, I have no clue. I just think it's interesting that it was not part of the announcement package. 2, the world men's doubles. Is it going to be pick your partner, or is it going to be it's a WPA World Championship?
So that would mean like by country then.
By country, you would think so.
Right. Yeah.
WPA World Championship, although it doesn't have to be, I guess. I mean, it could be anybody. So I don't. That's not in there either. Be interesting to see what happens with that, because that could affect World Cup of Pool. There's not a lot of things contractually that pin players down who are WNT players. Okay, but events like the World Cup of Pool, Reyes Cup, things like that, I think would be one of them, where you're not playing in 2 of them.
You want to talk about putting this event on steroids, Mike? That comment right there by Dennis Grabe, which I'd imagine he'd probably know, being the WPA ranked number 2, at least last time I checked. If it's not by country, if it's like wide open draft style doubles, sign me up. Let me see. let me see a Filler and SVB team go out there and just destroy everybody. Or Filler and Fedor go out there and just destroy everybody.
Well, here's an interesting thing. And this is completely out. We'll get back on track in a second. But who does Josh Filler go to? And I mean this, and I'm not going to get on a Josh Filler bash or anything like that. But he's not notoriously tight with a lot of players. So I mean, anybody would want to play with them, obviously.
Right, but a lot of players.
You see Josh Filler getting on the phone and saying, "Hey, Fedor, you want to play doubles together?" Or, "Hey, Shane, do you want to play doubles together?" And those guys going, "This is the weirdest phone call I ever got."
If he'd get snubbed, though, that would just be the most epic piece of content I'd love to get my hands on. Imagine being that fool, just saying, "Nah, I'm good, Joshy." No,
wouldn't you think the natural thing would be Fedor and Shane?
No, I don't, because I think they both have a very different style of play. I think that they're both very much me guys. They're not team guys, both of them, notoriously. Okay. So actually the Miz's comment there with Filler and Shaw, but we all know Shaw is number 1. He won the inaugural Hanoi Open, which let's not forget that. Number 2 is he's Mr. WNT, right? He's not gonna jeopardize that captain's pick or that captain's choice, right? So there's no way you're going to do that if you're Shaw.
Okay,
Shaw's going to be in Hanoi. I guarantee you that. He's not going to be out there.
Let's go on the other side of that. Filler is not going to be in Hanoi. Can we agree on
that? 1,000,000% he's not going to be in Hanoi.
Okay. So now let's take it a step further. Filler's not in Hanoi.
I like this game, by the way, Mike. This is fun.
Okay. Well, this because nobody announces, between Mantrum and Predator, they all announce things and say nothing. So it allows us to speculate the hell out of it, which is a lot.
And then we're the bad guys with them, Mike, by all the speculation.
This is more fun. This is more fun anyway. So
I enjoy this a lot.
Filler plays Indonesia, does not play Hanoi. How does that
means he's out of Reyes Cup and out of Moscone, right? Because that's been the blueprint, right? If you miss,
that's what I would guessing. That's what I would think he'd be uninvited again.
I'm just going off of history, right? I don't even think that's speculation at this point. I think that's just based off of what we've seen in the past, right?
You know what I envision right now?
We're pissing somebody off, Mike, for sure.
I envision Emily and all the Predator guys and WPA guys all sitting in front of their computer now throwing things at the screen.
Oh, they've turned it off. They've long turned it off. But on that note, so I did reach out to Matchroom to get Emily on. She was busy. I don't know if we'll be able to get her on. We'll see what happens with that. Also, during this whole time, we've, I know I've reached out to Predator multiple times. I've reached out to Karim to get him on the show. I don't think we'll get Karim on the show.
Get Vincent on the show.
That's what I think we're going to get. I think we're going to get the head of the Pro Beard Series on the show.
He'll be honest. He'll let us know what's going on, I would think. Hopefully.
So at least the road to discuss is open. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah. And I'm optimistic that we'll be able to get them on to get more clarification on it. But on that, listen, there's so many aspects of that event to go and digest and discuss and pick apart. Number one is if it is just open doubles, that might be the event of the year, Mike, because that's a whole. I love different dynamics within the sport.
It would have the potential of being the event of the year.
Yeah.
But clearly, unless one of these events move, the field's going to be split.
Okay, let me ask you this then: Where do you think, just not knowing the prize fund of those two events, and we're just mainly focusing on the men's side of it because the women would be there anyway because there's no conflicting event, right? But what do you think that split's going to be, or that percentage is going to be like, Mike? It's a $200,000 event.
I think it would look a lot like the end of last year.
Oh, you mean how Hanoi was like?
I think you'd have the Josh and the Austrians and the Poles and the Dennis Graves, and they'll be in Indonesia, and the Jasons. And I mean, Shane wants to play in the World 8-Ball, but if him playing World 8-Ball would jeopardize Mosconi Cup, and let's say U.S. gets to play Asia in the Reyes Cup, that's 2 guaranteed paydays he'd be giving up on top of Hanoi to play in Indonesia.
Shane likes his money, Mike. Shane ain't going to give up. Shane ain't going to give up 2 guaranteed paydays.
Is he going to be happy about it? No, but it's just, it's so you got that issue. Same for anybody would be a potential for Team USA and or Team Asia and or Team Europe. So
I really hope it's not USA versus Philippines.
Look at the guy in the center. Look at the guy in the center of this picture, of this poster.
Okay, hang on. Let me bring it back up because I've already forgotten who's in the center of this thing. Give me a second here. Let me see. Carlo.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, the dude up top, Joshy.
Well, no, but I'm thinking Carlo in terms of, Reyes Cup.
Oh, we had that debate whether or not he should be on there last year, and I think I think that his Chua stepping up is like, I don't want to say it devalues Carlo in that spot, but like it doesn't do him any favors for sure as far as being like the mainstay of the Filipinos on that team, right? So, but listen, Mike, you're talking about last year a $250,000 prize fund in the World 8-Ball Championship alone. Not to mention the fact that dude in that middle of the poster that you mentioned in Carlo, there ain't going to be too many phone calls made before he gets picked up as well. If it is going to be an open doubles, right? Because he would be a top player you'd want to have on your team or to be partnered up with, So how would that work out?
Then you got is he going to skip Hanoi? Ask for a hall pass on Hanoi, play in Indonesia in the doubles and the 8-Ball. And then turn around a week later and play in the Philippines Open? Well,
the short answer is yes. But are you going to get a hall pass? Because we've seen
that's what I'm saying. More than anything is how lenient is WNT going to be to these players if they decide to do that? I'm going to skip this one, play in these, and then come back for the next one. Not
going to go over well, Mike. And I think I would just venture a guess, just based off of the prize fund alone, that more players are going to be in Indonesia versus Hanoi. And I loved Hanoi. Hanoi was my favorite event last year. It was so inexpensive. There was so much to do. The fans and the atmosphere was fantastic, despite all the bullshit and drama that was going on in terms of the players. And of course, I'd love to see those fans get rewarded with the who's who of professional pool talent showing up to their event, which they get on Matchroom side anyway once a year. But I think most of the big boys, just on the prize fund alone, it's going to be like, I don't know if your Matchroom, how you would spin it to get them to go to Hanoi. Because if, let's say, Shane,
increase the prize fund.
Well, okay, that's sure. Well, that's always going to be ringing some bells, no doubt. If Shane goes to Bali, which we all know he wants to win multiple world championships, he's been vocal about that and on the record about that, especially over the last few months, and especially when the WPA news came out. So you got that. Fedor, another guy who, by the way, Mike, he likes his money too. And, he's going to be a favorite to win both those events, and especially the doubles, you would think. He's going to be a massive favorite no matter who he's teamed up with to go deep or snap off one of those events. So, and he likes his money. And by the way, he hasn't played any of the Matchroom majors to this point of the year. I know we expect him to be at the World 9-Ball Championship, but he didn't play UK. He didn't play European, right? And I think that those guys especially go where the money is. And especially now that everything's safe, right? They're not, you told me it was all good. You told me that I don't have any problems now playing WPA events, right? So there's a lot of like little variables here to kind of pick apart and how it's going to have an effect on everything else. I think this is just where I would sit at right now, is that event is just going to be a push for Asian players to make the Reyes Cup if Hanoi is included in the Reyes Cup, which, by the way, we still don't know what all is going to be included in that selection process, So there's a lot of different avenues that we can go down here, Mike, in terms of these events. But I think even though in years past players have been vocal, hey, I don't like playing on Predator tables. Hey, I don't like playing these gaffy formats, right? I think with the prize money alone.
Yeah, you follow the money. Follow the money.
Follow the money, follow the money. But it's the timing of it I found was really interesting, Mike, because obviously Hanoi had already been mentioned. You're saying on good authority that both camps knew ahead of time.
I think in January, Matchroom, the WPA, and Predator all knew what was coming up in October. I think they did.
So there's no surprise then on their ends, is what you're saying. I mean, clearly not on the Predator side, because they were the second one to announce their dates, right?
They had held up some dates, yeah. And word on the street was that Predator was going to Indonesia this year with something big because they want to go there. So it made sense.
Man, when you're hitting me with the word on the street, word on the street from Penosa, that sounds like a whole show by itself, Mike. I'm bringing the heat today, bringing the Hall of Fame.
I get coffee from every morning. He knows everything.
He's the little birdie who talks a little bit, huh? Yeah. Let me ask you this: where do you think that this ends up for the players? Who's going to end up going where?
I don't know. I think that everybody's got to start feeling out where they want to go. When push comes to shove, it's early in the game now. No one is getting shoved yet. So, there's still some time to figure out, I mean, I've not really talked to a lot of players about, okay, what's your initial thought? Where are you going? Mm-hmm. Something we probably should do.
I mean, someone's got to do some work around here, Mike. Clearly it ain't going to be me. So. No, look, I think the argument of the dates being announced, or like the dates being the same from last year, it's got some weight to it. I don't think it's got a lot of weight to it because we've seen things shift in the past. We've seen events completely disappear in the past without any warning, right? Or a heads up, right? We've seen them really drag their feet in terms of if this is going to happen, if that's going to happen. And if somebody else has a bullet to fire, go fire the bullet, especially if you already knew, going back to 6+ months ago, that this was a high likelihood of occurring.
Right.
I think that more of the top guys are going to end up going to Indonesia during that time. That's just my first gut reaction to it, just because of like, it's supposed to be. You told us it was supposed to be free and clear, that there's a peace treaty in place and we were good, right? So with that in mind, I know it's tough. Um, but I want people like the chance of winning a world championship. They like a higher prize fund. You know that, at least based off of last year, that the prize breakdown is pretty top heavy. The first two places
Yeah.
get a big bulk of that money, but like it's gonna have a nice sexy number to it attached to it for winning that event, plus being a world 8-ball champion. Then on top of that, you have that inaugural event, which is the mixed doubles, which I think is going to be fantastic. And how much
Mixed
is
doubles,
that
men's
prize fund going to be? Men's doubles. Sorry, men's doubles. How much is that prize fund going to be? You would imagine it'd have to be what, a couple 100,000, Mike? You would think.
I mean, it has to be if it's being called a world championship, right? Don't they have there's
Oh,
thresholds?
that's right.
Called
That's
a world
right.
championship, so it's got to be at a certain level. Now, yeah, you're right. It's top heavy. Also, World 8-ball Championship. You know, is it 64? Is it
I
120?
think the world 10-ball, because everyone and their mama's out there in Vietnam right now trying to get qualified for the world 10-ball. So you'd imagine that it'd be top 64 the same way for the world 8-ball, no?
You would think so.
Yeah.
So that's not a huge field. So it does leave a lot of opportunity for, you know, 196 whatever for all these extra players who wouldn't be in who would be in a 256 field. They all have the Hanoi Open to themselves. So yeah, there's still some good opportunity.
It's tough action if you're, no matter which promoter you are, because you want to find out who's going to commit as soon as possible, so that way you know who to open up to, or who to, if you got to run qualifiers or whatever it is you're going to have to do to fill up said field, And I think even on the WPA side of things, for that event out there in Indonesia, listen, they're not stupid. They know who the marquee names are. They want the Skies to be at that event. They want the SVBs to be at that event. They want the Fedors. They want Filler. They want
At least
everybody.
they're waiting to find out this time instead of putting their faces on posters.
That was awkward, right? Wasn't it? Like, it was like one after another, just kind of disappeared. One update after the next. Look, I hope we get more clarification on this. I don't want to say like it's a good problem, because on one hand, while I think competition certainly is, I think it's we all thought that this was going to be better after the announcement that all was good, and so to put some shadow on that event, especially Hanoi, because Hanoi's been like the redheaded stepchild, has been like the piece everyone's kind of been fighting for, it seems like. And so for that event to a third year in a row get shit on is pretty unfortunate, Mike.
Well, but you're not going to blame anybody for saying, listen, Vietnam and Indonesia are two exploding markets. We better stay away from them because Matchroom's already got an event there. That's not going to happen.
They are exploding, Mike. We've been hearing that for years, right? That's the place you want to be at.
Yeah. So not surprising, that someone else wants to go there as well. What you would hope the WPA could help, mediate for, say, 2026 is, you guys want to have a bunch of events in Vietnam and Indonesia? Great. Let's sit down at a table, put a calendar together, and put opportunities out there for 3 or 4 tournaments back to back to back to back if you guys want, and let's figure this out, instead of someone having to split the field, someone taking his lumps, someone whatever. That's not what this is all about. So
but neither one are really known to be
more events, and that's what we all want, and it creates more competition, and that's all good. But there are ways to do this that aren't, that don't involve finger pointing and who's trying to screw who over and whatever.
Do you think that there's going to be repercussions for going and playing Indonesia like there was last year for Josh skipping Hanoi?
I would say I don't think so, but if you throw that out there, then you make it basically a carte blanche for every player to say, you know, I think we'll all skip Hanoi and just go to Indonesia since we're getting a free pass, and we'll see you in Manila. And then Matchroom's in Hanoi with, you know,
how many players are going to call in sick to Hanoi, right? Like, how many of them are going to be like,
they're gonna do what they're supposed to do, and that's request, you know, a pass.
Because isn't there wording in that player contract for the WNT that states that you have to play X amount of events and you have to give reasonable whatever?
I don't know for certain how it will. You know, I don't know exactly how it's worded and how heavy they plan on enforcing stuff like that. Certainly, if it's an event that's going to affect something like we talked about, you know, if it was by country, does that affect World Cup of Pool? If it's by this, does that affect Reyes Cup? If it affects, you know, just WNT major events, then I think that they've been pretty good, pretty lenient about it, like we've seen with FSR and Shane and anybody else who doesn't miss. You know, I don't know what if there's language that says you have to attend X number a year. A couple of people have mentioned that before. You know, I don't know that.
Well, I mean, you want to really spice it up, you know. But Hanoi points are going to be double for Mosconi Cup, Reyes Cup, and every other invitational. Right, you'll get 2 on your money for showing up to Hanoi. Right, let's just throw some extra.
Increase the prize fund. Increase the prize fund to make it 2 for 1.
Oh no! We're not going to add money to it. No. We're not going to add money to it. We're just for the WNT rankings. We're going to give you 2 to 1 on your money for this event. We're going to spice it up, so that way you guarantee, hey, I'm going to get all.
That'll be like winning a world championship.
Hey, there you. Well, no, you're going to get like what, like 80,000. You know, so I'm really disappointed that all this is happening. All jokes aside, because it's like. I'm trying to plan out that time of the month, like that time of the year as well. And so I know the players are scrambling, and I know they're trying to decide also. A lot of those guys who are on that flyer, though, you'd imagine there's a pretty good chance they're going to be there this time around because Predator doesn't want to look like they have pie on their face for a second year in a row, you know? Yeah. And so what's that domino effect going to be like as you start discussing these prime invitational events, right? These exhibitions, these Reyes Cup, Mosconi Cup, all these things. And if your Matchroom, that Hanoi Open's been like a crown jewel of the season. It's a lot more lively than a European, a lot more exciting than a UK, right? There's a lot more people there than pretty much every event of the year. And the atmosphere you can't recreate outside of a Mosconi Cup or anything like that, you know? So you want to have the who's who. And like all the other fans, I thought, okay, well, it was going to be there. It was going to be calm waters because, you know, they came to an agreement. So, you know, not stepping on each other's toes when it comes to calendar dates, things like that in big events. But this event right here, Mike, is a whole other ball game. I think the prestige of it and it being a world championship is a dynamic, plus the prize fund, plus the added money for the men's event is just going to be too much for these big boys to go and pass up, you know?
Yeah, so,
yeah. I mean, on top of that, I mean, you got other aspects like, you know, one event's going to be on YouTube, the one's going to be behind the WNT .tv paywall. Like, there's just so many factors to go and take a look at this from, you know, that I think players are going to have to risk reward weighing it out. But yeah, I was really disappointed in you, Mike, especially for being out of the country as this news broke. That's for sure.
But they do that on purpose. They wait for me to be, you know, not
look,
around.
I'm excited to see how that player list is going to shape up. That I am for sure.
Yeah.
And let me ask you one last thing before we switch over to the Fedor and Shane preview show, which is what I titled this show. We haven't gotten to it 40 minutes in. Do you
only 40 minutes in.
Do you think that there's any chance that anybody moves their dates?
Well, we know Matchroom's not going to because, you know, TV obligations. So with Sky, whoever, you know, you're in a time slot, And venues aren't easy to do, and these things take months to work out. I don't think Fedor can just breeze into Bali and say, let's just shift it around on you. It affects the women as well because they got the women's world championship. So, I don't see anybody doing it for realistically. It'd be tough to do. You also don't want to be the one that blinked. So which we saw with Predators women's 10-ball championship, women's 9-ball championship, right? And the WPBA tournament in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Both WPA sanctioned. Both, Predator came out on top of that. WPBA moved their event.
Is this just bad luck, Mike, or is it just like someone's being an asshole here and intentionally trying to put events on top of existing?
I don't think the Predator intentionally tried to put something on top of the WPBA in that instance. But
it's just a coincidence that in the past month we've seen 2 events.
Yeah, right. Well, like I said, they had these dates. They had those dates on the calendar for a while. Something was going to go into those dates. One of their big events.
Yeah.
So it ended up being a women's event, and it ended up being in the same country. Now, hopefully, because WPA had given the WPBA those dates and okayed them and sanctioned them and then allowed them to get stepped on, hopefully WPBA got, something for moving its dates, some considerations from WPA for moving its dates. Although I'm surprised they moved them like a month earlier. I would have thought they would have moved them a week earlier, a week later, and allowed all the women who were coming in from Asia and Europe to play both events in one trip to the U.S. That would have been the smart play, but who knows? Maybe they couldn't get the same facility a week earlier or a week later or something. So, they ended up moving it, like a month earlier, which for someone like Wei Wei or Rita Chow or someone like that,
it's an extra, 33 grand.
Around, come back a couple weeks later to the U.S. That's tough. That's a tough swing.
All right, Mike, we'll shelve this for now, although there's still so much more that I want to get into it on this.
I'm sure we'll have more to talk about because I'm guessing we're going to get a little bit of feedback on today's show.
Hey, listen, I'm more than willing to have public discussions. You know that, Mike. And so the more, the merrier. All right, Mike, let's talk SVB versus Fedor, the rematch, race to 120, take 2, out there in Louisville once again. I want it because I know you're not a degenerate gambler, which I don't know how we became friends. Now that I think about it, you're not a degenerate gambler. You're more on the professional side of things, Mike, right? In terms of following tournament play and all this. So I want to get, what are your thoughts on this matchup? Just from the outside looking in, how much weight are you putting on it?
It's a high. It got to be a high visibility event. It's created. It's manifested itself into like this must-see thing. It's become like, it's not Moscone Cup, but it's become like like Buffaloes. The anticipation leading up to it, the build-up, the must-see TV, all that kind of stuff. So good for them for doing it because it's all about ringing the cash register. Not only the head-to-head money, but all the stuff that goes with it. Because we know that Fedor is a marketing machine when it comes to.
Fedor's going to have
T-shirts.
He's going to have his chalk for sale. He's going to have the paper towel from when he dried his hands, the towel that he used to clean the queue. That's going to be on eBay here pretty soon.
He's had shirts printed. He's had shirts printed up that he's selling that say Shane versus Fedor day 1.
They're gonna do like Shaw. I'm gonna rip off the cloth and then I'm gonna cut it into 800 little pieces, and I'm gonna have both players sign it and be available for sale at Fedor Gorse.
They've built it up into an event, which is great, fun to see. I saw a picture, a photograph of them all having dinner, and 27 people, and so it's going to be fun. And when they get into it, they'll get down to it. We saw what happened last year. It was it would wear them out over 3 days. We talked about this before. How ready will they be for it? It's hard to duplicate the first time of something like that.
Remakes don't usually go so well, Mike.
In intensity, in preparation, in animosity, whatever it is, it's hard to duplicate first time.
It's so listen, this whole, while I can appreciate the business side of it, and I got a lot of respect for it for sure. That hey, we're teaming up to sell X, Y, and Z kind of waters down the intensity level for me, Mike, if I'm being completely frank. And I get both of them want to maximize and squeeze as much of that lemon as they can. But goddamn, it really we're here and then we're here. You know what I mean? We're gonna be out there fight. That part of it makes it it just leaves a lot to for those conspiracy theorists to just enjoy all the way laughing the entire time. But I get it though to some extent. Like I said, I got a lot of respect for them trying to capitalize on everything they got going on. Who do you think has an edge, if you can call it that? Michelle, we did miss a good dinner. I know I was there last year. That was a great place if it was the same one. Who do you think wins, Mike?
Yeah, well, as far as who do I think is favorite, I have no idea what else is going to win. They're both, it's going to be great. It's going to be close to the end. I always take the guy who lost the first time because there's just more motivation. There's more motivation to be prepared. There's more motivation to play better. There's more motivation to do something a little bit differently. It's always a little bit harder to me for the guy who won the first time to come in with the same edge. Now, Shane can do it because it's not an edge like a title fight. It is, but this is also 3 days. It's an endurance thing, right? Okay. It's an endurance race. So from that respect, Shane, he's done this his whole life.
He has.
So he can weather any kind of storm, all that kind of stuff. But again, I just think sharpness, that type of thing. I always kind of favor the guy who lost the first time, and since it's the younger guy who's probably a little more at the top of his precision game at this point in his career, maybe I'd probably lean a little bit towards Fedor.
Going against Fedor, I would say that precision game might wear on him mentally over the course of 8+ hours a day, every day for 3 days in a row. And I saw it firsthand as he got fatigued. And I know he's taken specific measures to combat that and to resolve that, because that was an issue, and it was a glaring one because it cost him the match, losing each and every day at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, yeah.
Yeah, at the end of the day. So, but Fedor's a really sharp kid, and he's very practical in terms of his thought process and his preparation and his attack, and him changing his sleeping habits around is very smart. You know that he wants that, and I think that with Shane already proved what he had to prove. I feel like last year. That's my gut reaction. Now he's an ultra competitor. He's just like Josh. He's just like Fedor. They hate to fucking lose. I mean, they it's like it's in them, Mike, that they just can't stand it. And so, but how bright is that fire burning for Shane? I think it's a lot brighter compared to other players, because Shane's just a little different, bit different. You know what I mean? Like he's got Jordan in him. You know what I'm saying? And so, and he's not done. He's not ready to hang it up. But those are all like intangibles that are hard to measure.
Well, the tangible is Shane got a lot of money on the line, and people who have a lot of money on the line.
They do, yeah.
And he feels responsible for that, and that's
for sure.
all his years of doing it. I think Marcello's comment here is really interesting. Does Fedor work harder during a game than a Shane or a Filler? Because over 3 days, that can take a lot out of you, right?
Yeah, it does.
So that's a really interesting comment.
You literally see the fatigue just settling in, and common sense says that, hey, as the night goes on, the older dude is gonna wear out, right? Like that's what I would guess 99 times out of 100. Well, that one time out of 100 applied last year whenever they played before,
Exactly.
but before the U.S. Open, because Shane was just like this, big eyed. He had the killer look. He was
Do you remember? You remember Yung Chang at the end of the last day when it was tied, and he was sitting in that chair.
yes.
And he looked,
And Shane just there, cool as a cucumber. He's fat's coming out of the restroom, right? He's just like this. But like, on the note of a Chang Jin, look, I watch Federer's podcast. Does this make Federer king of 10 ball? No, the fuck no, it doesn't. You know why? Because Shane's beaten everybody. Every single buddy Shane has played and has been fine with playing him a set of 10 ball. Chang Jin, monster, right? Dennis, monster. Now, I know a lot of guys don't want to give Federer action, and I get that part of it. Okay? I completely get that part of it. But until you have the resume, Shane's always going to be the king of 10 ball for sure.
Yeah.
And I love that 10 ball is that measuring stick to see like, okay, you think you're the biggest dog in the yard? Let's go play a big one. Okay. I wish, for the sake of just the juicy numbers, and we talked about this earlier for these big events, like I was hoping it'd be more than 50. Federer wants it to be more than 50. I think Shane was content in playing just for 50. And my money in my head and my eyes and all these things, and I haven't been there in Louisville. I'm not in Louisville, but I know what I saw last year. And I can tell going into it, we all know it's going to be a break fest, right? That's going to be whoever can figure out that break is going to have the big
factor.
Yeah. How Federer can control the one ball is massive. Where Shane is just going to do what Shane's always done, and that's like, listen, if all else fails, and Shane's going to try to like figure out that puzzle. You know what I mean? But if he can't, and I don't think he will. If he can't, he's just gonna gun it. You know what I mean? And just do he's gonna act like he's playing like he's a kid again, playing on the Valley bar table there at grandma's bar, okay? And just start doing what he does best, run balls, right? And figure it out and play smart. And he's very much a rhythm player. He's a guy who wants to suffocate you. He's a guy who wants to be on his feet most of the day, right? He wants to punish you over and over and over again. Federer's robotic style completely goes against that. But then that can also be an adverse effect on Federer himself, right? And how it can wear him down. But I think that if what I saw Federer practicing the other day and the way that he was controlling that one ball, and I know he was playing against the Ghost and it didn't go as planned and all these things, dude, the way he controlled that one ball, Mike, was scary. And that's how I've seen Copigny win a World 10 ball championship. That's how I've seen Shane win all of his big 10 ball gambling matches, was all by controlling the one ball. You know why? Because they want to get shape and they want to continue to run on your ass over and over and over again. And I know that pattern racking thing is they got going on, but really it's one or bust, right? Shane's going to get balls down on the break. Federer's going to get balls down on the break. Federer's going to have more control of those balls going down on the break and of that one ball. I think that's going to play heavy into his favor, Mike. And I think, look, the addressing the sleep is massive, right? Now, you're never going to know until you know. And Federer's never really been in the trenches like that before. Like up until he played Shane, he had never really fucked with anybody like him before, like where somebody punched him back. Does that make sense, Mike?
Yeah.
And so this is only going to be really his second time facing someone as dangerous as a guy like Shane. You want to say hi, Mama? So going back in that water, listen, he lost a lot of money last year,
Yeah.
and so you're going to see how mentally tough Federer is in this matchup. I personally think that Federer's a big favorite in this matchup. I think that those days and those blocks of time, I love you. Those blocks of time when Federer was up by 8, 9, 10, 11 games is only the beginning. Because I think Federer's got the game and the skill set to bust that wide open. And I know Shane won last year, Mike. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen in real life, man. Like in terms of a match, it was just wild. But I think Federer wins. I think Federer wins convincingly. I think there's so many factors that play into his favor. Michelle mentioned to start the show, and I highlighted the comment that it's raining out there in Louisville. So how much will the table go and shift, and as the people come in and out and that door swings open and all the moisture in the air, those are all real factors, Mike. You know, but the if you can't control it, then that's when Shane turns into the favorite, because Shane to me is just a better rhythm player and a better guy who can just find his gear and will his way into his gear.
No one's going to control it for 3 days. No one's going to. There's going to be peaks and valleys. There's going to be ups and downs.
For sure.
We've seen it from match to match on people playing races to 10, where a guy broke like a monster. Same table, next match, can't make a ball. So it's going to be a roller coaster.
Matt asks, we have a vague sense of the money between Swords versus Mars. I think I haven't heard anything. There's at least 50 aside. I know that. And I'm imagining there's plenty more on the rail. Fedor was very vocal in the fact that he was open to taking all bets on the rail. So if you wanted to bet on him, or bet on Shane rather, you could just go and message Fedor, and I'm sure they can accommodate you if you'd be willing to post your money up. And Michelle says the dehumidifiers in the room. See, like in all those things, even having that in there.
Dehumidifiers are so good. You got a nosebleed last night.
That's so funny.
Emptying buckets of water out there on an hourly basis.
Squeezing it out, Mike. Squeezing it. So I think all those things to kind of control the elements in there is smart. But then I think about, man, who can adapt better as it goes up and down? And that's Shane, right? That's everything. At my eyes, the years, everything has told me that Shane can pull away from that side of it. But I just think that Fedor's going to put him in a hole that Shane hasn't been in before, and I think it'll be a hole deep enough where Shane can check out. And I've seen Shane check out. You've seen Shane check out, and I know he's
checking out. I don't think he's checking out anybody else's money. He's checking out in a match in the middle of a tournament that we go to see. But
no, and him and John Mars go way back.
I don't think in this case he can sit there and do the slump chair thing and not have someone talk to him later and just do the excuse me. Can we have a word?
No, I get that part of it. And Shane's never really been that guy in gambling matches anyway. He's always very much like a lone ranger, even out there, And so, and mad respect for going out there and playing in Fedor's backyard, by the way, because that's not easy to do. You're going into the lion's den, so to speak. But look, Mike, I was there last year, and Shane was that close to checking out. And I mean, it was that close, because Shane was the Shane that I've seen in Mosconi Cup. Shane was the Shane I've seen when he's down, 8-1 going to 10 in a major tournament. I've seen it, Mike. I've seen it. And I know that he's got all these intangibles that you can't measure and all these things, but it was close. And I think it happens this time. And I like, for the sake of wanting a loving competitive pool, I hope it's not. I hope it's super close. I hope it's back and forth. Yeah. I hope there are huge swings in this matchup. I heard from a little birdie that said that even just in practice alone, Fedor put down like an 8-pack or something. That's just in practice, So it's gonna be high.
Practice field.
Right. Remember what Allen Iverson said about practice.
Yeah.
I'm talking about practice. But it's the ask is a little high for me, Mike. If I'm going from the fan side of it, $50, that's like you're getting into like AccuStats territory there when they're $80, international and $80 derby or $100 derby, whatever it is. Like it's a high ask for a rotation match over 3 days. And I know they're the premier players, but that price seems a little rough, if I'm being honest with you. So
what was it last year?
I don't know. I mean, I was there in Louisville, so I don't know. And I didn't really get to see the production side of it or the commentary or any of that. You know what I mean? So, but just from the outside looking in, when I was looking at it today, I was like, man, this thing is $49. God damn. Like, what, do I get like a free drink or something with that? Or, like, what am I getting for my $49?
Listen to who? Who's the commentator rotation going here?
So they got Scott out there. And then they got Jason Sword out there, which Jason does a great job. But both of them, like, Scott can be a little bandwagony at times, and Jason can be like, I know he tries to remain unbiased, and he does a really great job. But, like, that's his guy. You know what I mean?
you're
Like you know that
not only
better.
it's his money.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
But
So
also, you
it's
can't have two guys do 3 days of this because they gotta have the same stamina. So you got to be like 2 or 3 other guys going to be in and out of there.
yeah. Well, look, those are going to be some long days. I
Yes.
probably won't be tuning in until the latter part of each day, just because that's really when the action happens. Because and
Moving
if
starts,
yeah, and if someone gets out to a big lead at the beginning, I'm done. Like oh, I take it back. If Shane gets up to a decent lead, I'll still be engaged. If Fedor gets up to a decent lead, I'll probably just check out because it's just going to be. I've seen that show play out over and over and over again in some matches where it just gets so far out of line, you know. So, but Mike, let me ask you this, and I know we don't got a whole lot of time left. When did the 120 become that measuring stick? Because wasn't for years the race to 100 was always the one. Like we're racing to 100 to see. When did the race?
It makes it an easy thing to break into days, 3 days. You know, you
40,
got
40, 40?
Yeah.
No, okay. All right. The miss says that I hear $49 you
You
did.
you can do a race to 102 days, 50-50.
I might bet on Shane then after hearing some
Yeah,
of those war stories. You know what I mean?
wait the end of that.
Yeah. What are you going to get the idea of who the better like is this going to solidify who's the better player between these two?
No.
Is it going to put it? No.
Well, someone's going to be able to flex the 10-ball long race muscle. And no one's going to argue with either one of them. Anyways, they're both right at the top. So, but is it the term? Is this going to define who's the better player? No, I don't think so.
I think so. If Shane wins,
if Shane wins, 3 days to decide. If Shane wins, he's a better pool player than Fedor.
Yeah, 100%. I think so. I think he's and look, Fedor's at the beginning of his career, even though I know he's so accomplished, but he's very much in the infancy of it in terms of what he can go and accomplish, and I get that. But I think that leave the old man alone kind of vibe, if Shane wins this time around, you know what I mean? Like or change the game. Right?
Shane wins this time. Fedor's still going to come after him like the next day.
Yeah, and I love that tenacity. And listen, if it were to lose like in similar fashion, I would still bet on Federer in round 3. I'd probably lay games taking Federer in round 3, just like I would lay games in Federer in round 2. The eye test is what I'm going off of here, Mike, compared to last year, and just that little bit of a sample size. I saw Federer breaking the balls. Now again, Shane's been there since Monday. He's been practicing and signing memorabilia since Monday. But if
this for this, like Fedor's his business manager at this event.
Yeah, he's pimping him out. Hey, can you come a couple days early? So that we can get this out of the way? But unless the game gets changed, like look, if it were to in terms of 10-ball, and 10-ball's always been that measuring stick of like as far as who's the better gambler or whatever, better player. I would say it's a case closed type of deal, if Shane were to win. But then I would still be very interested in seeing them play some one pocket because I think that'll be a great game as well. 9-ball is a little bit tougher for gambling purposes.
Yeah, right.
But either way, the action starts tonight, 6:30, I think Eastern time. Fedor versus SVB round 2. Mike, give me your score prediction.
Day 1.
Okay, sure. Day 1, and then we'll go with the overall.
Day 1, Fedor 40-32.
Damn, I was going to say that exact number, Mike. I swear I was. Brutal. Well, we're out. We can't even end any higher than that. Okay, give me the overall then, Mike. 40-82 says it's going to be a bloodbath then by the end of day 3.
120-117, pick 'em.
Oh, don't give me that shit, Mike. Give me a winner. Give me a winner.
Shane.
Really? You said you picked the guy who loses whenever we first started talking about this.
I said I think the guy who loses has all those advantages. I would probably pick the guy who loses. Yeah, I would probably pick the guy 9 out of 10 times. Wow. But Shane.
That's the hard part, man. That's the hard part with that motherfucker right there because he's so you can't keep him in a cage. You know, that's the thing.
And at a certain point, Fedor's going to look over and he's going to see that guy.
Yes, yes. Just like he saw him last year, and he did see him last year, Mike, over and over and over again from
face to face, and he saw him out of the rearview mirror.
I'll tell you, I would go. This is what I would do. So when I was in Louisville, Michelle had us in a real nice hotel close by. But like I'd show up, do a little bit of pregame stuff, and then I'd go to the hotel and I'd hang out for like 2-3 hours, get a workout in, right, and then go back for the home stretch, right. And I don't know how those dudes would do it day in, day out, Mike, because it was grueling, man. To be on your feet, to be that mentally
tougher to play that or to be a sweater and sit there on the rail for the entire time.
Oh, I mean, it's not even close to me.
There for 3 days.
It's not even close. Sitting your ass down there and just doing this,
yeah,
like is rough. Just thinking about it got my back tightened up on me, Mike. You know what I mean? I got to go stretch out now after this. Like I mentioned before, and I mentioned a few times doing these shows, I don't think it'll be close this time around. My gut, my eyes, my everything just tells me I think Fedor runs away with it. I'm hoping that Shane wins. My heart wants Shane to win. I really, really do, just so he can say, you know what, I'm like, end this whole discussion as far as who's the best player of 10 ball. You know what I mean? And then that gambling attitude, like he's it. He's the man. It settles all the debates for me. But I think that kid's gonna control the break a lot better. I think he's done the preparation, it seems like anyway, to handle the issues that he had last year. And I think it's going to be 120 to 96.
Wow, you don't think you okay.
I think it's going to be a bloodbath, Mike. I really do. I really do think it's going to be
back in 100.
And listen, I may end up looking like an idiot like I do every other show that we do, right? Where I'm completely off base and so far from being right. But that
I'll
one
take
ball.
20 games.
That's the first time Mike's ever in the history of knowing Mike. That's the first time Mike's ever barked at me for ever in the history of the show. That is the only time that Mike has ever asked, you know what, we can bet a little friendly something. I'll tell you what I'll do. Because I'm a nice guy. I will bet, and this is how confident I am in that pick. I'll do a dinner bet, and I'll give you 15 games. Okay? I'll give you 15 games, and I'll take Fedor. And I'll take Fedor for a dinner bet. Fair?
Okay.
Yeah? Okay. All right. You guys can check out the action at xpool.live.
You just talked me out of 5 games, just like that.
Did I? Oh, well, you know what? See, I don't like doing that wasting time negotiating. I like going straight for the jugular whenever I'm negotiating, right? I'm not going to be dancing around. I'm going to go straight for it, and that's what I'm going to do. So, xpool.live, $49 is the ticket price for you guys at home. Listen, I know it's expensive ask. It's still a hell of a lot cheaper than flying out to Louisville and being in the building. That's for sure. If you are in the area, though, I suggest you do go by Rail Yard because it's a great place, great food, great staff, great atmosphere, great people that are going to be there as well. And there is a cool, like, joking around from sitting down there. Listen, they got tables as far as the eye can see. You can go find yourself some cheap action, friendly action, some not so friendly action if your heart desires as well. Action kicks off at 6:30. We're going to be doing I'll probably be doing some pre and post, at least the pregame before every day. So we'll probably do a little show tomorrow and just continue to dissect the action. So, Mike, you got anything else before we get out of here?
Well, pro tip, if you're in Louisville and you want to get away for, part of the evening, go get a steak at Jack Fry's.
There you go.
Get your old fashioned at the Marriott lobby bar.
There are two.
That's what I'm adding to the equation. This is my contribution to the.
Listen, a good dinner at my age, that's better than gold right there for me, Mike. So listen, there's few people who I trust with their dinner and drink recommendations more than this guy to my left. Okay, he's the man, and he's been all over the place. And by the way, if you are in the area and those places are closed and you want a good recommendation, hit up that young lady right there, Michelle.
Yeah.
She'll be in the building. She'll be sweating it. She's a great, real friendly person and knows the ins and outs of Louisville. So, xpool.live, race to 120, SVB versus Fedor. Go get your passes, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.